Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon,
And I'm Mom.
and thank you so much for joining us here.
Yep, thank you for joining with us again.
Yes, we always love doing this, and Mom, this is the first episode Friday of 2026.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I'm looking forward to our Fridays again, Brandon.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it as well. And what are we starting off with?
Actually, today we're going to talk about The Office. Brandon, will you tell them our theme for this month?
Yes, so our theme for this month are shows that we have never seen before, but we're gonna focus in on mockumentaries.
Yes, like I said, this is a new one for us. Although we've seen a couple before, we have not focused on mockumentaries. And so we're going to spend some time examining some shows that people have commented about previously.
Yes.
Yes. And as we said, The Office is the first show that we're going to discuss. We watched that the other day. And this episode, just to give you a little information about this, what this episode is about, is basically about a group of people who work for a paper supply company. And we discover some of the ins and outs of their particular office.
Yes. And so this first episode aired on March the 24th of 2005.
Yes, it did. And Brandon, what were your thoughts?
Well, overall, I was kind of glad to finally see the show, only because I've heard so much about it, not necessarily from individuals, but more so just in passing, because it is in the common television discourse for having changed the shape of television. I wanted to see what all the hubbub was about, but I definitely thought it was interesting in the sense that I don't know, it wasn't that. I don't know, Mom. How would you describe it?
Yeah, I know we had some discussion about this offline. Just to give some information about who selected it, I did select this particular show. As Brandon mentioned, it's a show that we've heard a lot about. Neither one of us had watched it. I think Brandon may have seen something here and there throughout his studies in school, but I have not sat down to watch the show at all. And I kind of wanted to see why it was so popular. And so my initial thoughts, it was roughly about 21 minutes for the first episode, and it seemed really, really long. Um, it I actually had to watch it twice, and one of the problems that I thought this particular episode, and we're just talking about this one episode because we have not seen the series. Um, One of the problems I thought this first episode had, and I've mentioned this previously, is that it did not have an initiating point. If it did, I'm so sorry I missed it. But to me, it did not have an initiating point, what makes it harder to follow along on a show when you don't have a defined initiating point. We do have some exposition that is given in regards to some of the characters, meaning like their titles are told to us, which helps a little bit to know exactly what their particular characters are doing or what their job is. And the main character, his name is Michael, he seemed to say quite a bit. However, it was hard to define what they really were talking about, what was the main point of the first episode. We do know there's a merger that's going to happen, and some people are going to be displaced, but that's all we're really given, and I can't tell if that's where this particular episode is going. And then something else that I noticed immediately was that the show just seemed dated. And I know it was 2005, so I understand it was 20 years ago. However, in the workplace, it just seemed like a dated show. And some things that just made it seem dated was there was a lot of faxing going on. And, I've worked in workplace for many years, and, faxing was not really been a big thing, or at least in my job that I have. Anyway, a lot of calculators being used, and phone systems, and then you could tell by their clothes also and how they're dressing. And I know it was the time frame of 2005, so that in itself explains a lot of that. But it just appeared dated. And and Brandon and I watched a couple shows that were took place just a few years later, and it didn't seem to have that datedness in it. But this one just appeared dated. So it'll be interesting to see as they go through on the line, because we know this show lasted 9 years, to see how things progress in that sense. All right, Brandon, what were your other thoughts that you had?
Yes, and what was interesting, I thought, was that, to your credit of what you were saying of it just felt long, is I could see where various pieces of the episode, like standalone, I guess can be humorous, but I guess seeing it all together in a single episode. It just was, it did feel like very lengthy, and just sort of its perception, and also that we don't really know per se who these people are, in the sense of, sure, we've introduced a character to help us sort of acclimate to the environment, so there were some introductions, but I felt it was just kind of weak in the sense of we don't know who these people are. We're just sort of getting thrown into their work environment. And like you were saying, in terms of the merger and the consolidation and downsizing, that we don't know if this is like an overarching thing, in which case it's good and it is emphasized to some extent, but not in the sense that this is where what the show wants us to latch onto. I don't know if it quite did that.
Yes, I agree totally. And I will have to say, I had to take a lot of notes with this episode. Sometimes I don't have to take as many notes, but for me to understand who everyone was, because the character of Dwight, for example, he was on there for quite a while before we actually knew his name or what he was or what his title was. Maybe that was purposely done. I don't know. But it was a while before we actually knew who he was. So I'm not quite sure. Now, the overarching question is, would I watch this again? And you're going to be shocked by this. I would watch another episode. I need to know that it gets better. It lasted 9 years. So I need to know that the show gets much better. People talk about it and they rave about the show. So I am willing to watch a few more episodes just to kind of see how things go along. Maybe Brandon and you and I can talk about this later in regards to, a few episodes down the line, kind of coming back and saying whether or not it did get better as a show, or at least for us. I would say for us watching it. But if I had to rate the show as I normally do, 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, I actually gave this one a 2, which I think is one of the lower ones I've given, just because I was not attracted to the show as I thought I would after watching the first episode. And I'm willing to watch more, and I will watch more just to kind of see. All right, Brandon, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, and I will probably give a similar assessment of two. And I'm not saying that necessarily that the premise is bad. It's just more so that we don't know what the premise is, in the sense of that even if you have to evaluate the first episode, I guess the description would be that the company is downsizing and they have a new temp worker coming in. That's really the main consensus I can really give. Because usually the first episode is the template that the rest of the series uses, and I don't know what exactly it is, but I will say that given the mockumentary format is practically standard in present day, I'm wondering if it just being different at that time with not that many shows with the mockumentary format back then, if that's what made it stand out, because that's always a possibility.
Yep, that is true too. That is true too. But like I said, I've heard such wonderful things, so I'm willing to watch some more episodes and to see how it gets along.
Yes, and I will say in my research that I did read that after season one that they made some adjustments to make the show a little bit more positive, I guess, in the sense of the Michael Scott character.
Oh, okay. Well, he's the one I remember. But yeah, yeah. So I can't wait to see how the show moves along a little later.
Yeah, so definitely we look forward to hopefully being able to revisit the show and see how it progresses. And I did also read that this first episode is completely adapted from its British counterpart, that was very short lived. So I'm curious if episode two has any drastic differences, since they were supposedly more original in that one.
Yeah, and a lot of times you guys have noticed that Brandon and I have watched the first and second episode because we know that some significant changes occur. But because I didn't read further and I'm not familiar with the show, I didn't know whether we needed to combine the first and second episode before we can we kind of come to some consensus or make some determinations. And so this is all based upon the first episode and all based upon our own opinions.
Absolutely. But mom, I definitely look forward to, like I said, to seeing how this mockumentary format evolves over the years and through our discussions.
Yep, I look forward to it also. Brandon, did we have any connections with the show?
So, mom, we don't per se have a direct connection, But we do have an indirect one. But I'm going to circle back to that. So I'm going to first say that we have spoken about two shows with a mockumentary format before.
Alrighty. And which two shows were there, Brandon?
Yes. So those are St. Dennis Medical. We spoke about the first episode of that series. And then we also have Modern Family. And we just spoke about an episode of that show just a few days ago.
Yep, we sure did, Brandon. We sure did. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss about this show?
Well, Mom, I want to go ahead and speak a little bit about our indirect connection.
All right. What is that?
So one of the producers of the show has helped produce another show that we have watched.
And what is that?
So that is the producer Kent Spornak.
Oh, is that what the Golden Girls?
Yes.
All righty. Didn't know with that last name. All right. That sounds great, Brandon.
So yes, Mom, he previously worked as a stage manager for the Golden Girls and the Golden Palace.
All right. Sounds good. Anything else you'd like to discuss?
No, I mean I think that is it for our discussion.
All right. Well, you guys let us know. Are you a fan of the Office? Did you watch The Office on a regular basis? Let us know. And I say we look forward to speaking with you next time.
Have a wonderful day.
All right. Bye, everybody.